Another week, more bad starts from Carlos Rodon and Bobby Miller. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Wednesday, July 10th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. And what do we do with these pitchers? Carlos Rodon, another bad start, this time at Tampa Bay. 4 innings, 4 runs, 5 strikeouts. Fastball continues to get crushed. Last 5 starts, a 10.57 ERA, a 2 whip on the nose. Scott, what do we do? Is it just a hold and bench? Can you drop Carlos Rodon? Your thoughts?
Well, Chris made some good points on the full-length podcast about how Carlos Rodon's fastball is getting crushed this year, and the way the secondary arsenal looks, maybe he'd be better off fading it. And we got a little glimpse of that in his previous start. It was the best during this very bad 5-start stretch. He allowed only 3 runs. He struck out 8. He halved his fastball usage. So there may be something to work with there. There's still reason for hope for Carlos Rodon to turn this around. But I don't think the upside, even in that scenario, is such that you have to stick with him through thick and thin. If I saw him dropped in one of my leagues, I'd probably pick him up. But I think we're at a point now where it's not unthinkable that he'd be dropped in some of those shallower leagues.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's tough because where we're at lately is the waiver wire pitchers are not all that enticing. You know, there's some streamer types, so maybe somebody else emerges, but as of now, I don't think that there's like a slam dunk waiver wire pitcher. Let's talk about Bobby Miller, who got destroyed at the Phillies. 4 innings, 10 hits, 9 runs, 3 walks to 2 strikeouts. He gave up 2 homers in this start. And in 4 starts since coming off the IL, a 9.68 ERA, a 1.98 whip. Similar question, Scott. Hold Bobby Miller or looking to drop him?
Again, it's not unthinkable to drop him at this point. He's been unusable. He's currently unusable. But the upside is apparent. And I'll actually let this tweet from Eno Saris sum it up. I don't know why Bobby Miller hasn't been better. It bothers me. He's got velo even now as it's down. Pitches have good shapes. He isn't a 2-pitch guy. The command is maybe not elite, but it's not below average. He's got pitches that fit each handedness. I still think he'll be good? ? And so, he went through a whole checklist there of major things we view as major factors for a starting pitcher's success. But of course, it's not the complete checklist. There are so many variables, including ones we don't even know how to account for. We're never going to get to a point where we can predict what happens in baseball, truly. And so I think that what that checklist shows that Eno Saris went through there is Bobby Miller has tons of talent. And in the long run, that talent is probably going to break through. But he's clearly working his way through it right now, coming back from a shoulder issue. Bobby Miller himself didn't offer any solutions. He said he feels healthy. Maybe it's a mechanical thing, he said. But I do think in the long run, he'll figure it out. It's just in the short run, there's no way you can use him, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Between the two, you can obviously, I'm assuming, buy either one extremely cheap. Which one would you try to, or which one do you have more confidence in, I guess? Bobby Miller or Rodon?
I have more confidence that Rodon is going to be usable. But if either of them is a stud in the second half, it's going to be Miller. So it kind of depends what you're looking for. Realistically, I'm not sure I'm making a major play for either outside of Dynasty, in which case I'd be going after Bobby Miller pretty hard in Dynasty right now. Mm-hmm. But in redraft, it's more like if I saw one of them dropped, I'd probably pick him up.
Let's wrap up with 2 waiver wire hitters who have picked things up recently. Michael Busch, 4 for 6 with his 12th home run. He's homered in back-to-back games, and over his last 8 games, a .387 batting average with 3 homers. And Colt Keith, 2 for 5 with his 8th homer. Last 7 games, he is batting .414 with 4 home runs and 1 steal. If you can only add one, Scott, who would you rather speculate on, Michael Busch or Colt Keith?
Well, I think they're both trending the right direction. I think they're going to have a better second half than first half. I am a little more hopeful for Michael Busch because I've always been more hopeful for Michael Busch. He's been a favorite of mine since he first appeared in the Dodgers system, and I've tracked his development very closely. He spent a long time in the minor league system, obviously. But one thing I noticed is he always was slow to adapt to a new level, and then something would click and he'd look like the best hitter in the minors, such that he was promoted to the next level and then struggled until something clicked and he'd look like the best hitter in the minors. And so maybe that's how this is going to play out in the majors now. I mean, he's been so hot lately that it may have already started. I have pointed out that the strikeout rate has been high for Michael Busch even during this hot stretch, but very recently it's changed. 1 strikeout in his last 5 games. And I still think there's significant upside there. Colt Keith, there's upside there too, and his strikeout rate isn't an issue. But I think Busch, I don't know. I feel like the upside, especially given the venue he plays in, is a little bit higher.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.